Well, hello and welcome to this Moneycontrol live stream. I'm Nandita, Khemka, and with me I have Latha, Venkatesh, and we'll be talking about the all-important RBI policy outcome that will be announced tomorrow by the Governor Shaktikanta Das. That's happening at 10 a.m. tomorrow, but let's talk about the expectations this time around. Last time when we had a chat about this, we were talking about whether that would be the last hike or not. But then RBI governor came and said that okay, there is room for more hikes given what's happening globally. And this time around, everybody is expecting this 25 basis point to be the last one. What would you say? Is this the last hike that we are looking at?
Well, the market has moved over to a hike for a couple of reasons. One, that the Fed is still hiking; it's not called off.
Yeah.
I mean, largely ECB has been hiking. Bank of Thailand hiked. Quite a few banks have.
New Zealand today hiked 50 basis points out of the blue.
But Australia didn't.
Yes.
So it's quite possible that there is a small. After all, it's not 100% expectation of a hike. I do something called the Citizens MPC on CNBC TV 18. There it was a 3-2 split.
Okay.
So there were two people expecting a pause, saying that the world is got a lot of headwinds. The banking crisis in the US will make bankers risk averse. So growth is going to come down very suddenly, and so the Reserve Bank can well go on a pause mode and not say that I will never hike again, but pause now and say I am becoming data dependent. So there are people, but yes, the majority is expecting a hike. Now those who are expecting a hike are calling it a dovish hike.
Right,
by which they mean
that, and I was like, I'll ask
I know
you
that's the term. Those who say it's a pause say it will be a hawkish pause. So the governor will say that I'm not done, but I'm taking guard now.
Right now.
Looking at the data. Those who say it will be a hike say it will be a dovish hike. Now, I think it's quite possible that he will hike, and he will not necessarily give you an assurance that this is the last hike. And one can understand where he would be coming from, because there is fears of El Nino. There were the late rains, so there is a supply side issue in terms of food.
Right.
And the quarter gone by has been fairly robust. I mean, when you see the data coming out of banks, the kind of credit offtake, as well as FMCG companies saying they've done better than Q3. The Reserve Bank's own tone in the last bulletin, where they have a state of the economy, has been very robust in terms of economic growth. If they are so strong about economic growth, that means there is a demand side pull on inflation. So maybe they will just want to say that I am hiking and I'm not quite sure I'm done.
Okay.
That could be a little bit of a hawkish shock for the market.
Right. So what would you be looking out from the governor's speech tomorrow? Is there a possibility of a change in stance from withdrawal of accommodation to neutral? Do you think this is the time to do that?
I'm quite sure there will be a change in stance, but how much? Will it go all the way to neutral? Because once he says neutral, the market will say no more rate hikes.
Right.
Although technically neutral means I may raise
or not raise, depending upon the situation.
Or pause or cut. That's what neutral technically means. But market will read it as last of the rate cuts, and therefore I'm not very sure the governor will want to say that. If he says that, there is Diwali in the markets.
Right.
Markets will be genuinely happy. But my sense is he will tweak the language to in between. He may not say that there's necessarily going to be another hike. He may not say that I am taking it off the table. He may say something like data dependent.
Right. So what's in it for the bond markets? In the US, we saw yields obviously reacting to the Fed governor's tone, and how the fact that even in the US, the next hike of 25 basis points could be the last, given what's happening with the regional banks in that region, right? So how would the bond markets be reading any signals coming out of the governor as to whether it's a rate hike with a move towards neutral stance or a pause but with a hawkish undertone to it?
No, if the governor indicates that he is likely to go into a long pause, then the markets will actually take it very positively.
Right.
He may not necessarily say neutral, but if he says I'm in for a long pause and we are going to be he may not say long pause. We will have to hereafter pause and see how the data takes us. We will be data dependent. He says something which the market believes will not mean a hike in June. The market will be very happy. The happiness may be short-lived, because in the start of April there are some positives for the market. One, the debt mutual funds have got a lot of money, and even the insurance companies, because the 5 lakh premium cap kicks in, have got a lot of money. So there will be buyers in the first few auctions, maybe first couple of auctions. So the market is poised to be happy. See, it has ignored even the crude price hike today, because on balance the expectation is a little positive. Unless he sounds really super hawkish, I think the immediate reaction of the bond market is likely to be positive, and therefore even of the stock market.
Right. Let's talk about inflation in that case. You know, you mentioned El Nino, unseasonal rains and stuff like that, and that will only add to woes when it comes to food inflation. And of course, let's also not forget that OPEC has announced a very surprise output cut, which would send crude price, in fact it has already sent crude prices soaring, and we are once again staring at crude going back to $100 a barrel, and that would of course mean increased oil bill for us. So in that sense, do you expect RBI to revise inflation forecast upwards, because there are upside risks to inflation even now?
Well, everybody has been pointing, even Jayant Verma, the external member in the MPC, has been pointing that the Reserve Bank is working with an average crude expectation of $95 and $100, which is not the reality. Even the forward rates, futures rates, are not indicating that kind of a price. So where is the need to increase? I think we are looking at the wrong number. The price hike for you and me is not happening so often. Because the government is coming and either taking away the windfall tax or increasing the windfall tax, or I mean not just windfall, even the excise duty, which is more important from a petrol diesel point of view, the special excise duty. So therefore it is not impacting the CPI per se, because the refiner is not changing it for you and me very frequently. What the RBI assumes as 95 or 100 becomes less meaningful. What you and I pay is not changing so much, so we can bother about it a little less. There are other crop fears about inflation, but these are all supply side measures. The Reserve Bank hikes when it sees a demand pressure. Now that is where it becomes very important what the RBI thinks of growth. If it is gung-ho on growth, then it will go ahead and hike, because demand is there. It was gung-ho on growth both in the February policy and in the intermediate bulletin, the March bulletin. It said that some taxes have been cut for the lower echelons, that is putting more purchasing power in the hands of people up to 7 lakhs income. As well, their growth forecast is 6.4% for FY24. And the rest of the market is sitting at 6 or below 6. So they seem to be very confident of growth, and therefore they may fear a demand-led inflation. I will watch for that. I don't think they will alter their inflation numbers, because according to them for April, May, June the inflation is going to come down to 5. So I don't think they will alter that. There is a huge base effect. Where the RBI is expected to be hawkish is the February inflation number was way above what RBI said. The RBI had forecast for the quarter 5.7. It is going to be 6.1 or something. But that is also the NSO has changed its calculation method, and the Reserve Bank pointed that out in the bulletin. So I don't think the Reserve Bank will sound very hawkish on inflation. If they do, it will be because they are gung-ho on growth. So that is what for me is most important. More than the stance, I would watch out for what they are saying about growth and inflation. If that sounds ultra confident, then you should expect another rate hike.
So RBI sounding ultra confident about growth and inflation won't bode well.
So along with the positive news will also be the caution that they are not done with hikes.
Well, that we will be watching out for that, whether it's a 25 basis point rate hike and what the RBI governor says about the future rate hike path would assume significance in tomorrow's
May I just
policy.
add one word more? The bond market and for that matter bankers will be worried about liquidity. There's extra cash that bankers had all these years after COVID. That is dissipating, and now they announced something called the targeted long-term repo operation, TLTRO. That ends in April. That money will go back to RBI. So there will be liquidity tightness, and that's what the market is more worried about. Mind you, after this gush of debt market and insurance company, for the FY24, people will not put in debt funds because the tax advantage is not there. Less money may come to the guaranteed insurance products because that 5 lakh premium per annum limit kicks in. So who will buy the government's borrowing program? Only the banks. So the bankers are worried. RBI should sound a little dovish because after April, there may be a problem pushing the government borrowing program, in which case interest rates will anyway rise.
Right.
Yields in the market.
Yields,
so
yeah.
what RBI says about liquidity will be much watched
Will
by
also
the
be
bankers.
important. Well, lots to watch out for from tomorrow's speech from RBI Governor Shaktikanta Das. Well, of course, we will be getting you live coverage of the rate announcement as well as a post-policy analysis with a battery of guests. So don't forget to tune in to Money Control at 10 a.m. tomorrow morning. But thanks a lot, Latha, for joining us and putting things into perspective as to what we should actually be watching out for from the governor's statement. Well, with that, it's a wrap. For more news and updates, keep watching Money Control.
Thank you for having me.